Last night I saw a video where a mayor says that cities should be the focus of all world government, not nation states.
Wherever he's coming from, he was reading one of my dreams, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
so totally in agreement with that that it surprises me that somebody else thought about it.
I I've studied the nation state a lot, and I think they're not going to disappear anytime soon. It's not going to be just cities. It's probably impossible. What we should do, or perhaps think of doing, is that cities are going to become much more important, and that the logic of viable systems tells us that cities should be doing much more than they're doing right now. Maybe we don't need, what we don't need is the state level, and I don't see how we're going to get rid of the national level because of currency, um, security, you know, federal concerns. Uh, if you have a large territory, the United States is not going to become, let's say, 500 different cities where people can move freely from one place of the world into Detroit or New York or whatever. It would be too much of a hassle to have a security check at each city. So there's many things that I don't see happening, but there are many more things that we could be doing that we're not doing right now, which would really contribute to making this a better place to live. Um, you see countries like Mexico and many others in Latin America that we have so many resources, and yet we are not being fair to all the people that live in Mexico. The US has its own problems, different problems perhaps. And again, we are very far from doing what we could be doing because we are insisting on keeping this political system that was designed 230 years ago. Okay? And it's not working. It's called representative democracy. We need more participatory democracy, and we could do that with the modern technological means. Now, when I talk about technology, I'm not just talking about the iPhones, the iPads, the computers, or the videos and all that.
Mhm.
I'm talking about something that you and I have been following very closely, which is the science of effective organization, the science of cybernetics that began as communications and control, and then from an engineering beginning, it evolved into a science where you get many other things thrown in as the capacity for the observer to define the system and a whole different paradigm and different way of thinking and focusing things that you need in order to notice that the rest of the world is working under another paradigm, and it's that paradigm that has been responsible or is producing the sort of world that we live in that is not working anymore. When you get to become reductionist, you're not going to see the ecological effects. You're not. It's going to be very difficult to even consider the possibility of, let's say, global warming or other systemic failures that we're facing right now.
Yeah, my only difference with you is that I see ourselves as already having become the global village. So I think that many of the issues that face us, for example, take just weather, climate change, pollution, and things like that. They cannot be handled or managed effectively by creating 200 and some odd different nation states that hardly even talk to each other at times. The only way you can address these problems is because they are global. They don't recognize national borders. They don't pass through customs and anything else. They exist because they're global issues that affect the whole planet. And as long as you have nation states ultimately responsible uh, for dealing with those problems, you're going to have fragmentation, ineffective organization, and the kind of mess that you see. The idea of a United Nations was really a very, very noble idea that has never been followed upon. It was supposed to unite nations into one, United Nations. In fact, it has become a forum for where all these nations can fight with each other in a different way. They may not be using arms, but they're still fighting, they're still doing their own thing. So, in any event, what I'm saying is, I think the nation state is itself one of the major problems that we have to deal with and rethink. I don't think nation states, well, I don't have to think it. The evidence is there. They're not dealing with or solving the existing problems, no matter what kind of system they invent. So I'm much more of a global brain kind of thinker, and thinking of, well, what are the components of that global brain? And I go back to the human brain. I compare each individual, all 8 billion of some odd of us, to a neuron in the human brain.
But yeah,
And
but one thing that you must consider also is that the brain has this human nervous network that connects to the doors to your arms or your legs or your speaking abilities. And the brain has these perfect connections with the rest of the body where you can coordinate things. And
exactly.
just because we can connect to others in China or Japan or Europe doesn't produce a viable system. It just because we are in a brain in a sort of way, it would be more like a brain in a jar. Okay, you can do all the thinking, but if you're not connected to the rest of the organism, then there's no way you're gonna do any thing useful. So uh, there has to be a lot of structure. I would say that the problem with the nation state is that it's a problem that we have with any huge organization. They take their own goals, they start uh, producing their own objectives, and their behavior has nothing to do with the intentions of the people that created those organizations. The current way the United States is working has probably nothing to do with the ideals of the founding fathers. If they saw what happens right now, they certainly wouldn't agree. But that is not just the problem of the nation state. It's very large corporations also fall into this sort of problem. The fact is that we know how to create big organizations, but then we do not know how to control them. We don't know how to make them conform to the original design. And it's like the sorcerer's apprentice. We know how to start it, how to start something. We don't know how to end it. So a redesign, I don't think that would probably get rid of the nation state, but it would, in many ways, um, let's say, cut down all the excesses that you find in the federal level organization. and you would cut down on the excesses of the state organization. Why? Because technology allows the empowerment from below. Okay? You're going to have more powerful citizens, more powerful communities, more powerful cities. Then you don't need as powerful states or as powerful nation states, federal governments. Why? Because more things are done at the lowest level of the organization. So the problem we have is, when are we going to start? How do you proceed? What are the ideas on creating this new structure? Then you say, well, what are the structures that are interfering with this being done? And you say, well, for one, how about the political parties? These are very vertical structures of power, and you have then elections, and then you have all these assumptions of who gets elected and why. And as we were saying the other day, the rules on how to play with elections have nothing to do with being good at exercising government. It has to do only with being good at getting elected. So we're getting people into office that are good for running elections or being elected, but not very good at running a government.